Okay, so we're about 50 games into the fantasy baseball season. Do not panic. Do not panic. What you need to do is you need to use those tools that are available to you to start building your team in the categories that you need. You start using that waiver wire. You look into trade options. You use the who's hot, the transaction trends, any type of research you can do to help build your squad up. Now is the time to start focusing on those little small things that are going to get you to that championship at the end of the season. What we're going to focus on in this video is showing you some of those players that are more than likely available in your league on that waiver wire. Whether it be veterans who are starting to get hot, they may be second half players, or whether it's some prospects that have just called up or about to be called up that's going to help their big league club and will help you in the fantasy season moving forward. Now, before we fully dive into this, I'm going to need some of y'all to like this video and some of y'all to subscribe. All right, so we're going to use my team as an example here. As I've told you guys before, I am Chipper's Woodshed. I'm in first place. Yay! But I still have a lot of work to do. You know, you can see I need some work in average. I need some work in strikeouts. If I move my giant face out of the way, ERA and WHIP are categories that I can use a lot of help in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pinpoint a couple of guys that may be available in your league to keep an eye on, or to go ahead and pick up if it's a spot that you need. I'm going to try to give you guys that are multifaceted, and I'm going to try to give you players that can help your squad either immediately or very soon. So we're going to use my team as an example here because I've actually picked up some of these guys that may be available in your league and may be able to help out in more than one area. I have on here, you know, MJ Melendez, who I've talked about in my other videos when I was talking about prospecting. Coming up, I have him as my catcher, and he was a guy that I recently added. I added Morel today. He may be, and you can see on here, on these right here next to my giant head, what percentage have them rostered. It's not necessarily what percentage they're carried on squads, it's just what has them rostered today. So you can see that Melendez may be available in your league. He's probably 46-50% owned, something like that. Same thing with Morel. I just added him today because I had Gorman down here, who is one of those other players, Nolan Gorman, who is only carried by about 40% of teams. So probably 60% of your leagues have him available still. But I picked Morel up because Gorman was out today, and I needed someone to fill in that spot because I'm kind of lagging in games there. So, but those are three players right there that may still be available in your fantasy leagues as far as hitters go. Same thing down here with Aries. I just picked him up about 2 weeks ago, and he's carried. And you can pull this up if you're using Yahoo. You can pull it up. You can see he's 78% rostered. So, same thing with Gorman down here. You can see he's 69% rostered. So, 31% of those leagues are still going to have him available in that league. Now, people that I have recently added that I recommend putting on your team, I just picked up, and now his next start is against Colorado. So maybe not on this next start, but I just added Spencer Strider from the Braves, who is on here as a relief pitcher, but he just got moved to a starter. And he just started the other day, struggled a little bit, struck out a lot of people. He is a high strikeout pitcher, but he may not go more than 5 innings for you. But he is going to get you a lot of strikeouts. And like I said, his next game is against Colorado. So I would steer clear for a start from him because nobody seems to pitch well against Colorado. But that's a guy that is not going to be owned by, he is rostered by 40% of teams. So that means that 60% of the teams out there are going to have him available. So those are a couple of guys that are still going to be available. What I recommend doing is you can go in here on research and you can look up who's hot. And it'll pull up the stats for the last 7 days on players. You can go by position. You can go by category. You know, however you want to do it. You can search. I mean, you can't search by category, but you can look on there. This here, if they're like that, that means they're on somebody else's team, and you can propose a trade if you would like, or you have them and you can drop them. If there's a plus sign next to their name in the Who's Hot category, that means they are available to add to your team. So if you were looking for a catcher, and you know, you needed home runs, you needed average, you can add him right up without having to propose a trade or having to do anything. And you can do that for any position, or you can do it for all positions. You go to utility, and it'll pull up who the hottest players are. And you can see on here, like Victor Robles is number 5 on this list, mainly because of his stolen bases and his average. And if you needed a center fielder, there's your guy. Do the same thing with pitching. You just hit pitcher, And this will give you the stats for the last week. And it'll show you, if you needed a starting pitcher, right here in my league, that's going to be who's number one as available. So it's all going to come down to figuring out on the standings page what you need, going to your team in here and seeing where you can add, where you can drop. If your second baseman is struggling, like I had Colton Wong in there, if your second baseman is struggling, he can go. If you think he's going to turn it around, then you can hold on to him. And sometimes that's your best play. But I would go in here on your players list, and there are prospects getting called up every day, and you can go on top of that, you can go into the transaction trends on here, and you can pull up and you can see people who are a little smarter than I am, and you can see where they're adding people. You can see how many ads they get. You can see when people start dropping people, and maybe one of your guys ends up on that list, and you end up being like, well, I need to figure out why that guy got dropped. Maybe hurt, maybe struggling, whatever. And this will usually show you too, based on these transaction trends, on who's got called up recently, because people will start adding guys quickly once there's a call up, and you can see who's on a hot tear that maybe he's going to end up on SportsCenter for the next 2 weeks, all over the place. And you want to grab him before he's a hot commodity. So you want to use these tools that are available to you to build up your squad going forward. It may end up being, some no-name rookie that just comes out of nowhere that you just happen to see on the hot trend, he's on fire. Or you just happen to see on the transaction trends that everyone's adding him for some reason. And you want to look into that. It doesn't always necessarily take being the first person on the planet to hear about a guy. All it takes is just doing your research in here, figuring out where you can add people, if somebody's going to be better than somebody else, and then just making it happen. Sometimes you just got to go for it. Sometimes you got to, just let somebody pass. I gave you a couple of guys that are probably available in your leagues. And if you want to find more of them, you can always go into this player thing, and on the player list, you can rank by category if you're looking for specific categories. You just go in there and you just find what you need. Like I've had Colton Wong for the longest time all year, and he was struggling for me, so I dropped him and picked up Gorman. And that's just a move that you got to make. And he's not doing terrible. I mean, he's the second ranked player of available players. But sometimes you just have to make those moves. So I know that was kind of a lot of nothing, just to get you guys to search your teams and to just say, hey, figure out what you need. But I was trying to give you guys those steps to get to a point where you can easily figure out when it's time to make that move, easily figure out who you want to make that move to, and then giving you a couple of suggestions of people that may be available in your league that were either recently called up or that all of a sudden have just kind of caught fire. Like I was looking through here the other day, and I just happened to notice that like D Gordon, or D Strange Gordon, I think is what he goes by now, that he has started to get hot lately. The man's 34 years old and he's swiping bases every day. The point being that no matter how good your squad is, it can always be better. There can always be a player that comes out of nowhere that can help your team just a little bit more. No matter if you got 12s in all categories, there's always someone that can make your team better. So keep an eye out on those transaction trends, the who's hot. Keep an eye out on your waiver wires. When people drop people, add people, you never know who's going to come up. It's doing a little bit of research that's going to pay off big time in the end. I hope that helps out the guys that ask me, who do I need to add? I've got this person that's hurt. What do I need to do? Where do I look? I hope that this helps explain a little bit of how to do some of that research within your fantasy baseball app or program. Because a lot of people are surprised at the tools that are at your fingertips to be able to help you assess those questions and to figure out, who you're going to go with. And Yahoo even offers a comparative one where they say, oh, you should probably start this person versus that person. Don't always go with that. I'll tell you that right now. And I'm sure the other apps have that same type of program that, oh, we suggest you go with your gut, trust the team that you drafted, but also trust your ability to assess and make changes where you need to make changes. Maybe somebody's hurt. Maybe somebody's playing bad. Maybe somebody better got called up. Maybe somebody's just caught fire. Like I always talk about Christian Walker, and the man's hitting 200 something, but he's knocking the ball out of the ballpark all the time. And I had dropped him when he only had like 3 home runs. Now he's got 13. Still hitting 204, but so you get to that point where you understand what you're looking at, and you just eventually have to go with your gut. So I hope that your gut is telling you to like this video and to subscribe. Nope. Subscribe and check out this next video. Thanks. Have a good day.